Um, After All Dogs Go to Heaven, which was released in 1989, Bluth didn't have a lot of success, and a big part of that was due to the return of Disney in 1988. They had come back and they were ruling again. They were on top again. So Bluth continued to make some movies, and he had a couple that had some moderate success in that time, but the last one that he released was in the year 2000 with the release of Titan 8E, which was his last film and was critically panned, which I don't agree with. I like Titan 8E. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. But that was the end of his career. I mean, he's still doing stuff now. Now he's writing books, which is great. Let's skip forward to 1998. 1998 was the end of the Disney Renaissance. They had released Move On. It was their last major hit. They took a step back. They actually went back to doing some live action stuff at that time. And what was on everybody's mind at this time was Pixar. Pixar had pumped out a couple of films. They had released Toy Story and Toy Story 2 by 1998. And I had originally wanted to talk about Pixar as a separate company, but after doing some research, Disney has always kind of had its fingers in Pixar. It's always kind of had a hold of them, at least in some way, even though Pixar is owned by Steve Jobs, actually, of all people. And Pixar was actually originally part of LucasArts, of all things. But Disney has always been a financial backer for them, so they've always had a small piece of the company, even though they didn't own it completely until 2006 when they bought them out. So what I'm going to talk about instead is DreamWorks versus Pixar. Now, in 1998, DreamWorks came onto the scene kind of out of nowhere. DreamWorks is a company that has been around for a while, but they decided just kind of all of a sudden, hey, we want to try to make some animated movies. So they released Ants in 1998. They weren't huge competition for Pixar at the time, because Pixar was really the only major thing that was pumping out movies, animated movies at the time, and they were knocking everything they did out of the park. Everything Pixar released was gold. And it's kind of still true to this day, with the exception of Cars 2. But in 2001, DreamWorks finally released something that made them a major player, and that was Shrek. Now, Shrek is one of my favorite movie series of all times. I love Shrek. I love all of them. I think they're all great. But for quite a while, it seemed that that was the only thing that DreamWorks could release that was any real success. I mean, DreamWorks movies are good. Their animated movies are good, and I like their style, but it seemed that Shrek was the only one they were doing that was able to have any sort of success whatsoever until 2008, when DreamWorks released Kung Fu Panda, which was huge. Everybody saw that movie, and everybody loved that movie. I still have never seen all of that movie, but what I've seen of it I liked. And then they followed that up in 2010 with How to Train Your Dragon. Now, 2010 is an important year, and I'm going to talk about that for just a minute. 2010 had 8 major animated movie releases. And they were all from different people, and that's why this was important. 2010 saw the release of Legend of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole, which, by the way, is an incredibly underrated animated movie, and I would suggest everybody check it out. It's actually really fantastic. That was released by Village Roadshow. Shrek Forever After, released by DreamWorks. How to Train Your Dragon, released by DreamWorks. Tangled, released by Disney. It was the beginning of Disney trying to mount a comeback, which wouldn't really take hold until 3 years later. Despicable Me was released by Universal. Toy Story 3, released by Disney Pixar, which became, up until Frozen, the best-selling animated movie ever. And I hold that it was Pixar's best movie that they've ever done. Megamind, which was also released by DreamWorks, which was okay. And Alpha and Omega, which was released by Lionsgate and Relativity. Now, why am I mentioning that? Why is 2010 such an important year? Because we had good animated movies from all sorts of different companies. This was kind of, 2010 was kind of the end of one company kind of ruling animation. And it's paved the way for where we're at now, which is anybody can make animated movies and anybody can make them good. You know, we're getting animated movies now from everywhere, from all different types of companies, for different people in different ways, and I love it because I love animated movies, you know. And now we're getting even greater stuff. You know, everybody has sequels on the horizon and movies that are coming, and some of them I'm incredibly looking forward to. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this movie, because there was a recent announcement that Pixar is finally going to be making a sequel to The Incredibles, which is easily one of my favorite animated movies ever. And we've been dying for a sequel for it for the past 10 years, and we're finally getting it. And it's a great time to be a fan of animated movies. And that was really the point that I wanted to try to make in this. And I know I went kind of long, so I hope you guys stuck with me. Look beyond the norm for animated movies. Check out some of the little lesser known movies. Some personal recommendations from things that I've listed here. Check out Fritz the Cat. Check out the animated Lord of the Rings. Check out Black Cauldron. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Well, anything that Don Bluth did, basically. But especially All Dogs Go to Heaven. Again, Legend of the Guardians. That's a big one. That's a really great one. Last thing I want to talk about, just real quick, because somebody mentioned it in a comment on my last video, that my friend Maya said that he would like to see me and my brother tackle Who Framed Roger Rabbit versus Cool World. Now, Cool World was released by Ralph Bakshi in 1992, and I said I was going to mention it. Here's my thing with that. I know what Cool World could have been, and I was disappointed with what it turned out to be. It was rated R. It should have been rated X. Now, I know that he wanted to mention that because it's two movies that are both a fusion of live action and animation. But let's remember that Bakshi has been working on that since the 70s. Disney is actually the one that kind of took what he was doing and perfected it. Yes, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is kind of the pinnacle of the fusion of live action and animation. There is no denying that. But they're such different movies and they're such different styles. Cool World could have been great, but the problem was that they had to tone it down because it was one of the first movies where he actually got major Hollywood players in it. Kim Basinger, Gabriel Byrne, Brad Pitt. You know, these people are in it, and they had to be able to get a big release for it. And in 1992, for a movie to get a rating of X was kind of a death knell for it. You know, it didn't happen. It meant that it wasn't going to get any sort of release, and nobody was going to see it. So I'm not going to compare those two. Although I will say, check out Cool World sometime. It's pretty decent, but it's not what it could have been. I'm going to leave it at that because I've been going on really long here. So I'll see you guys on the flip side. I don't know what we're going to talk about next time, but stay tuned. Bye.